So I've just come from a meeting with a bunch of active guys. I think it's important when you're kind of with your tribe or people who are similar to you in activity levels, you realize how common injuries are. One of the guys had done an ACL, had knee surgery, another guy had broken his arm. So if you're amongst people where it's uncommon to be injured, just realize I've just come from a meeting with a bunch of really active guys, and we are all sharing our journeys in terms of being injured. It's far more common than you realize. So if you think you're alone in it, you're not. In this together, guys. So welcome to the week 3 vlog. So this vlog is actually now caught up with where I am in the journey, so that's good. I don't have to think too much about what was going on in that week. So I'm recording this at the end of week 3. I'm quite excited about what's coming up in week 4. So I'm actually going back to, you may have heard me talk about an engagement. I was supposed to start the next day after getting injured. I'm starting that this week, so we'll see how that goes in week 4's vlog. And I'm going for my first physio appointment in week 4 too. The other things I want to just quickly mention, so I'm going to record a short nutrition only vlog piece video, so I'm going to try and link it here, but look out for it in the description just so you can get an idea of meals that you're eating and protein intake you're getting, and I'll talk about other things I'm doing as well, but the main thing is trying to get a good idea of how much protein you're eating. I mentioned in a previous video you want to be eating around 1 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight if you're trying to put muscle on, and then when you're trying to heal from an injury, you'd imagine it would be the same, if not more. So look out for that video and stuff in there. I'm also going to link a video with routines. So I think routines are becoming increasingly important for me. Part of that is just working out. I've been told, as I'll mention just shortly, that I can work out everything other than my soleus and gastrocnemius, in other words, my calf muscle. I've even been encouraged to start trying to move my toe on my injured foot to help blood flow. So I think routines are quite important, especially when the last 2 weeks have been really unroutine. And I found myself breaking kind of the big ones like sleep and going down the rabbit hole of research and trying to find out what best to do. My sleep has definitely suffered a little bit in terms of just being online reading until quite late. But I also bought something, a bed, which I could put in the room I'm now using downstairs, which has helped sleep as well. So we'll talk about routines in that video. I'll try and link it here, but also just look out for it in the notes. So the biggest takeaways from week 3 were, for me, you would have known that I mentioned in the last video that the NHS advice I got just didn't seem correct. So if we talk about private versus NHS, I went for a private medical appointment last week with a top foot and ankle surgeon in the UK. I don't want to mention costs and things, but obviously this was a cost. I want to talk about who it was perhaps at a later date if I can do that. But in the range in England, a private appointment with a surgeon is between about £250 to £300 at the time of recording this video. And I needed to get a second opinion, and I just wanted a bit more confidence with the route I was going down. The difference between the NHS was the NHS went and got me there 2 weeks after injury. I was able to book my private appointment 2 days after I made a phone call, and it could have been sooner. They almost apologized for it being 2 days later. And the NHS got me to have an ultrasound. The NHS orthopedic advisor never even looked at my injury, just relied on the ultrasound. The big difference with private was obviously I got there a lot sooner. So had I done it a lot sooner, I could have gone for surgery a lot sooner, which I'll talk about again when it comes to my advice that I got for my particular case. The other thing is the surgeon didn't even need an ultrasound. He said he likes to assess them most of the time by looking and touching because that's his craft. He knows what an ankle and Achilles should look like. And he can, by feeling around and just having a look and touch and feel, can get a better idea than what he said was really difficult to see on ultrasound, because it's just a bunch of lines which can be quite hard to read, which I can appreciate because the NHS doctor showed me the ultrasound and I was really having difficulty seeing what he was trying to show me. On the other hand, the NHS might be really utilising ultrasound, so the orthopedic consultant on that side maybe is far more experienced in looking at ultrasounds, potentially. I don't know. So in terms of my own specific treatment, I had a 1.6 centimeter, 16 millimeter gap in my Achilles that the ultrasound revealed at the NHS. When I went to see the private medical orthopedic surgeon, he kind of put me in that equinus position and said that he could barely even feel a gap, couldn't really, and that meant that when I was in that position, the gap had kind of filled itself in and was close enough that he was really happy with my healing. So that was super positive. He overall, with my particular case, said had he seen me on day one, because of how active I am and what I do, he might have advised surgery. But 2 weeks when I saw him was almost 3 weeks down the line. He said he wouldn't advise surgery, and he was really happy with my case. He told me not to worry and I could almost go through an accelerated recovery. This is all particularly down to my case, so don't take any of this as advice for your own cases, even if you might have some of the similar numbers. And yeah, he said I could go through accelerated recovery and that would be it. The other thing I've read is in surgery. Surgery is typically 30 minutes to maybe an hour for this injury if you get seen really quickly. And I was almost at that 3 week mark. I think post 3 weeks, the surgeon has to undo a lot of the healing that's happened because it's kind of healed in an incorrect position. So the surgery is probably longer, which is why the surgeon wouldn't even think about it for my case in particular. If you have a larger gap, maybe if you didn't go to get your foot in a cast within 48 to 78 hours, maybe surgery will be the route that you go down. So that's the difference between private and NHS. I found really positive news in terms of just healing in a non-surgical way, conservative treatment, which I'm really happy about. As I said, I've got my physio booked next week, so I'll keep you this week, which I'll keep you up to date on. And I would say that is it. So the day before I went to see the surgeon, I did something that I don't advise anyone really does at all, but I did it just because I'd done so much research and I realized that for two reasons. One, I wanted to mobilize my foot sooner rather than later because it fit my lifestyle. As I've mentioned before, there's two kind of avenues around conservative treatment, and they are to go down the functional or the kind of historical. The historical is just being in a cast in the equinus position for 6 weeks, where your foot will deteriorate, but you'll be in the right position and the tendon will be as close as possible and you'll be healing. So that might be something that's appropriate for your injury and the gap and whatever it is. For me, again, I had no idea. So this is why I don't advise it. I'm a little bit nervous doing it myself. But because I was told I had a partial tear, and again, the surgeon private I saw kind of dismissed that to the point where you have a partial tear, a lot of those fibers aren't really doing anything anyways, and it should be treated a lot of the time as a full tear, potentially. What was I saying? I went down the functional route where there's evidence saying that there's no downside versus the old route of being in a cast for so long. And there might be, and they say might be, beneficial benefits coming out of being mobilized and in a boot rather than a cast, because you put pressure on that leg, and that means you're indicating to the Achilles tendon how to heal and the direction of the fibers, which initially kind of join in a mishmash of shape, and then the pressure kind of apparently helps it to go in the right direction. So I had a fiberglass cast on, and I didn't appreciate how difficult it would be to cut off. So I actually started, and I won't tell you everything I did because I don't want you to take this as permission to do this yourself. I started with just a normal pair of scissors and I could get through the top. What I didn't realize was the fiberglass at the top was just like one layer thick, maybe two. It got to a point where I was cutting through the cast and scissors wouldn't do. I went through 3 different pairs of scissors and they all kind of were increasingly in terms of robustness. And you're obviously putting something down a cast that could scratch you potentially, and that could lead to infection if it's not treated, and all sorts of risks open up. Also, I was really kind of compromising the kind of what the boot was doing by cutting it, and it got to a point where I couldn't go any further. So the boot was compromised. I couldn't even get the cast off. So it's not something I advise. I got it off in the end, relatively easily. I had to wait a period of time. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you how I did it because I just do not advise anyone doing it, because the risk of getting stuck halfway through taking it off, maybe cutting or scratching yourself, is just going to open up complications. It's the risk I took. I also did it because I knew if I saw the private surgeon the next day, there was a chance with my cast off, we might not have enough time in the appointment for him to have a look at it. So that was another motivation for me to get it off, and I think I was right, because all the videos I saw on taking casts off required a nurse or someone specialised in it and who was using this saw that I would have been pretty afraid to have close to my foot in the first place. That's about it for this video. So I am going down the conservative route. I've been given that advice from private medical, and I'm now pursuing physio. In terms of the boot, putting it on was really weird. So I think 2 and a bit weeks out of my cast, my foot had been totally immobilized. So it felt really weird, it was really delicate. I was really kind of scared and nervous doing it, especially since I was doing it at home. I felt like a little bit of a burning sensation the next day, I think, after I saw the surgeon in that ankle. But after it was all strapped in, it felt kind of good. It was really weird the first time getting used to how to do it all, being like overly delicate, which was a good thing. But it just shows how fast things heal. Within the next day, things felt better. I went to see the surgeon, so I spent a lot of time on that foot the next day. The surgeon actually told me to put even more pressure through it. He kind of, when he saw me kind of really not knowing what I was doing, he said, if you're going to make the decision, and I was really open with him what I did, to put a boot on, which he agreed was the right treatment for me. And he said, well, don't be afraid to put some pressure on it. So I started putting some pressure on it when I was walking home. And I think that's probably why it was a little bit burny, a little bit achy that night. It hasn't occurred again. But I do get kind of hot flushes in that leg randomly, maybe at night, and then I might take off the boot or I might do stuff. So I would say initially it did feel super weird, but you get used to it quite quickly. I'm not experiencing any pain, but I do sometimes feel that Achilles more, which makes sense because I'm kind of in a different position. I've been told to decrease it 5 degrees every week, so the angle starts at 30 degrees, second week will be maybe 25, and if things are going well, I'll continue to reduce it. But that's about it with the boot. I always wear it at night. People say it's really uncomfortable. I went for the VACOped boot, by the way, as well, so looks something like this, with a massive wedge on the back. It gets really easy to put it on and off. I'm so confident now, and I've only had it on for like 4 days, maybe 5 days. What else would I say? Yeah, it feels pretty good. I can put a lot of weight through it now. I leave it on at night because I just do not want to mess it up. I bought something else which was really expensive but kind of helpful for me. So when I shower, I tend to take the VACOped off because it's so hard to shower with, and get through like one of those sleeves without buying the extortionate VACOped one. So I put my foot in this and then I put it in a sleeve. I haven't got around to confident enough to wash and have a bath without a boot on at the moment. At night, always wearing the boot. For me, it doesn't cause as much discomfort as other people tend to say it does. I'm perfectly happy with it. I leave it on most of the day, and then I take breaks opening it up, spraying it down with a few things. So antifungal athlete's foot, because I actually suffer with that, and then I've got an antifungal shoe spray that I spray in the boot. So just trying to keep things clean, and I'll wash it out when I need to. But that's about it for week 3. I look forward to updating you in week 4.